Barry going to show up?
You know him. He's always late.
I know.
Barry on time? Never.
Barry, never.
I guess that's it. Hello, everyone. I am DeLynn Gaston, and you are watching Moving Forward TV with your local market update. Thank you so much for joining us. And Barry, hello, everybody. I'm Barry Horvath. Well, Barry is out playing today, as you can see. So I have the lovely co-host joining me, Denise O'Brien from Whitco Insurance. Hello, Denise.
Hi, DeLynn. We got this.
We got this, girl.
Yeah.
We can do this. So, so some of you might already know, Barry is unfortunately nursing kidney stone recovery. So poor Barry, our prayers are with him, of course, for a speedy recovery. But that's just a kind of a cool picture. That's where he'd really like to be.
Yes.
Hi, Barry. But anyway, so I have Denise with us today, and Denise is an expert, has been on our show before. We totally love spending time with Denise. Just very, very good wealth of knowledge when it comes to insurance and flood and hurricane and all that stuff.
Yes.
So thanks for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
So guess what's just a few days away?
Christmas?
No. I'll bet your phones are starting to ring like crazy.
Yes, they are. People are looking for hurricane coverage and flood.
Hurricanes. So those of you who are just moving to the area from out of state, welcome to Florida. Welcome to hurricane season, right? Which runs from June 1st till December 1st. So half a year, we're in hurricane season.
Yes.
But that's okay.
That's okay.
Right? That's all right.
We live in paradise.
We're used to this. We live in paradise.
We don't have snow.
That's right. So that's really a positive. Huge positive. All right. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that they should expect. The people who are moving down who maybe don't know a whole heck of a lot about it. A lot of people, I find in my line of work in the mortgage business, of course, a lot of people don't need a mortgage. They're coming down and they're paying cash for their property.
Nice.
So I know, nice. They sell their nice home up in California or New York or wherever, and make $1 million, and they move down here and they pay cash for a house. However, insurance is not mandatory when they pay cash, but obviously extremely highly recommended, and especially to have hurricane coverage. So my first question is, are they required? When they get insurance, is it automatic in the state of Florida? You have to carry hurricane insurance?
No, you don't. That's optional with some companies. Some companies won't write it without hurricane coverage, but there are ones that are optional, but they make you, in your own handwriting, write out this paragraph that you understand nothing's going to be covered during a hurricane if they elect to remove hurricane coverage.
So nothing. So
Nothing.
So if a tree falls down in their yard,
Right.
and it's not a hurricane time, the tree falls down in
no,
the yard, that's covered. But during a hurricane, that same tree falls down in their yard, now it's not covered.
Correct.
Wow.
It's the cause,
What caused the accident,
damage.
so to speak, the
Yes.
damage. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to know. So what else do they need to know about hurricane coverage? Yeah. Let's continue with the people who are cash buyers. Is there like minimums, maximums? Is there does it depend on if you're like in a wind tunnel?
The closer you are to a wind zone, well, we're in Florida. There's going to be damage everywhere.
Right,
The
we're a
hurricanes
peninsula.
went up the middle of the state. More damage was caused in the Orlando area, than on the coast. But we look at deductibles. That can affect it. What your house is insured for, in the deductible, it's usually a percentage. And some of the companies are coming in and changing that, which is good. You now have more options.
Okay. Can you increase the coverage on your house higher than what sometimes I know from the mortgage standpoint, there's minimums. You have to have at least this, kind of
Right,
coverage.
right.
But on a cash deal, I'm not sure if they're allowed to play with those numbers at all because there's no mortgage involved.
Most companies require you to insure it at replacement cost value.
Okay.
That's why we send you that replacement cost estimator, because we want everybody to be on the same page and understand what we're insuring the house for. So I talk to the insured and the realtor and find out what is in the house, what kind of roof, and
Right.
through the inspections, that helps me to determine the cost to replace the home.
And that brings up another good point. And again, from just looking at policies from the mortgage standpoint,
Right.
when the people are applying for or getting the coverage and everything, I get the question a lot. They're like, let's say I'm buying a house for $150,000,
Right.
but yet the coverage is $263,000. Why is that?
Actually, the market value on the homes are lower right now than the replacement cost. If they had to go in and rebuild the complete house like it is right now, it would cost that amount of money.
And is that because the older homes right now selling for less money
cheaper.
than the new,
Yes.
and just the cost of construction, the cost of
Yes.
labor, the cost of everything is much higher. Because a number of years ago, many years ago, it was
15 years ago, it was the opposite.
right. You were insured for a lot more than what you're paying for the or
Right.
other way around. Yeah.
We could not get the replacement cost estimate
High enough.
High enough.
I can remember that
Yes.
actually in a couple of loans, especially when people were only putting 5% down or 3.5% down, a very small down payment. So they had a $200,000 loan, yet the insurance was only
Exactly.
like 175.
Yes.
Yeah, I do remember that now that you
So,
say that.
It's flipped.
Isn't that something?
That was crazy.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about, on people who are paying cash for the house. So they definitely have a lot more options.
Right.
Now, the people who get a mortgage,
Yes.
they're kind of limited on their options, are they
Yes.
not? So let's
That's
start
correct.
first with now, and I know me as a mortgage person, I'm calling you and I'm saying, okay, I got a really tight debt to income ratio here. What can we do to get these people as low as possible so that we can make them qualify and such? So what are some of the things that you can help out with? Obviously, deductibles.
Deductibles.
What's like the minimum and the maximum and stuff like that?
The minimum is $500,
Okay.
and then the maximum can be up to $2,500 on the all other peril or 10% on the hurricane deductible. And that 10% is always what your house is insured for. So if it's insured for $100,000, it's a $10,000 deductible, and it's what our client is comfortable paying out of pocket in the case of a hurricane or an all other
Right.
peril. So that's what we look at too. Other ways they can play with that is their personal property. Most of them have it insured for 50% of the dwelling A coverage, which if it was 100,000, it would be
Okay.
50,000. Some companies allow you to go down to 25%. Very rarely we see down to 10 or 15%, or you can take it off completely.
Oh, okay. Which I'm sure you don't recommend. Let's talk about that in a minute. We're going to take a quick break, and
All
we'll be
right.
right back with Denise with more on insurance and deductibles.
All right.
Dude, I got this cool.
Consumer Advocate, your host and the consumer quarterback, Brandon Rhymes.
Hello, welcome back. Thank you for coming back to us.
Yes.
So we're kind of like sitting on the edge of our seats here with our deductibles and stuff. So let's talk about that hurricane deductible that you said. So
Yes.
10%. Now I do see on the policies that I see come across my desk all the time, 2% or 5% or something like that. I didn't even know it could go all the way to 10%.
Right.
Obviously very dangerous to do that.
Very dangerous.
You know, just real quick, I had one of the banking relationships that I have in the community here. They said after Hurricane Irma, she said, do you know how many people came in asking me for an equity loan so that they can get trees removed or whatever because their deductible was so huge.
Right.
They needed an equity loan to be able to get the tree off of the, driveway or whatever it is, or, just do the repairs that they needed because the deductible was so high. I guess it was one of
Right.
those. So let's, tell us about the deductibles.
Okay, there's some new things companies are doing. Some of them will allow you to have a $500 hurricane deductible, which is huge. And then we have one company we just got our appointment with, we're super excited, that has a diminishing deductible. So like on your auto, if you don't have a wreck, next year your deductible goes down on your hurricane.
Oh.
Then the next year, if you don't have a claim on your hurricane deductible, it goes down also.
Oh, that is really
So-
cool.
And they write on the coast. They write right on the beach, right on the coast.
So your deductible will go down and your premium won't go up.
Correct.
Nice.
Nice.
And they underwrite right on the beach?
Right.
Nice. That doesn't mean they sit on the beach under an umbrella underwriting your policy.
We wish. Yes.
They wish, I'm sure. That means
Yes.
that means that they're doing houses that are waterfront, because I know that was a
Yes.
problem for a while. A lot of the insurance companies just didn't want to touch anything,
Yes.
west of Alt 19,
Right.
right? Or west
In the
of
wind
19.
zone.
Yeah.
But then another thing that can help you on the hurricane portion is a uniform wind mitigation inspection.
Okay.
You need a qualified inspector to go out and he'll get in your attic and see how it's attached to the roof. If it's a hip roof, meaning it looks like a pyramid on all four corners, and that gives you a huge credit because the wind can't lift it as much as the gable roofs or the flat roofs. But depending on the credits you have, you could cut your premium in half if you have all the credits and you have a newer roof. And it's wonderful for the client when you tell them, well, I got a quote from this company. Well, let's get a wind mitigation. And then it cuts their premium in half.
And again, this doesn't have to be if they're getting a mortgage, by no means. In fact, on the mortgage side, we don't even care. They don't even have to have a wind mitigation. I always highly, highly, highly recommend them,
Yes.
though. So even if they're paying cash, it just pays
Yes.
to get a wind mitigation done.
Right. And
Good.
we both deal with qualified inspectors, so
Right, right.
we can guide them
Who can
to
do that? Yes. Okay, what else do we want to talk about on wind?
Opening protection. One other thing is if you have the hurricane shutters and your garage door is certified hurricane, compliant,
Okay.
but every opening has to be hurricane compliant. Every one of them has to be replaced to the current Florida building codes. If I tell my clients, if you have a boat with one hole in it and you put that boat in the water, is it going to sink?
Yes.
So if you have that house with one opening, that wind is going to get in that one opening and, likely cause more damage.
So when you're saying, the garage door if it's hurricane rated,
Yes.
doesn't make a difference if all the windows are not hurricane rated as well?
Every opening has to
Every
be
opening. So the front door, the back door, the side door, garage side door,
Yes.
and all the windows in the house.
Right. Even the little moon-shaped ones at the top.
Even the little moon-shaped ones.
Right. Or they have to have the shutters that go against them.
And is that something that gets picked up in a wind mitigation?
Yes.
Okay. Because I'm like, how do you know if the little moon thing is hurricane rated or not?
The building inspectors, they
They
know
know.
what they're looking for. And it
Okay.
has to have a little code and a little stamp or a sticker on the window or the door.
So if it's not, though, if like the windows are not or something like that, then they're not going to get the credit.
Right.
And if the credit is big enough, it makes a big enough difference in their policy, it probably would behoove them to get that replaced, right?
Right.
Can they do that after the fact so that they buy
Yes.
this house or whatever, and then, this little moon window above the front
Yes.
door wasn't hurricane rated? If they replace that with something that was, then you can give
Yes.
them the credit afterward. That's good to know.
At
That's
any
really
time
good to know.
they have the policy, they can submit a wind mitigation and get a, credit.
So they can do the upgrades necessary.
Yes.
And their inspector can tell them what those upgrades would be, right?
Correct.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Good, good,
So
good.
that's
See,
good.
this is good, interesting stuff. Now, I want to jump over to flood real quick too, because we're in Florida. We are on a
And it is
peninsula.
hurricane season.
And it's hurricane season, which also means floods. So, but real quick, tornadoes. Does tornadoes, and only because of all that's going on in the Midwest there, tornadoes covered under hurricane, or is it covered under your regular?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
If a hurricane occurs if a tornado occurs during a hurricane, the hurricane was the cause.
Okay.
So that was the whole event. So it can be like a day or two. Remember Tropical Storm Debbie?
Right.
If it's a named or numbered storm, it's considered hurricane coverage.
Oh, even if it isn't a hurricane, named hurricane, but
Right.
a
Named or numbered storm.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
That's good to know too. I didn't know
Yes.
that. So even though it's a tropical storm Debbie or, tropical storm number 17,
Invest.
that's
yeah.
good. Okay, good.
Yes.
That is good to know. Okay, so now we're going to jump over to flood. Flood. Now, one thing that I did learn that I thought was really interesting, that a lot of people don't realize, that your flood insurance coverage only covers rising water.
Right.
So if, your roof blows off and the water falls in, that doesn't necessarily constitute your flood insurance. That's your homeowner's
No,
insurance.
That's your homeowners. And if it's during a hurricane, that's under your hurricane deductible.
So a couple of weeks ago, we had this major storm come through. Remember, just a couple of
Yes.
weeks ago, and out of nowhere, we're all at work, and it damaged like crazy. We had big trees go down in our yard and everything,
Yeah.
and no name or anything. That's homeowners.
That's homeowners.
Okay, but if that pulled some shingles off the roof and water got in or whatever, still not
That's
under your
homeowners.
flood.
Should be, no,
Okay.
that should be under your all other peril deductible. If it's just a random afternoon thunderstorm.
Yeah, but you know what? My deductible's probably too high. I didn't even bother. I didn't even bother doing that. All right, so let's talk about the first of all I know we only have like a minute before we're gonna take a short break in a minute, but touching really lightly on the deductibles for that's set by FEMA, isn't it? Or
on flood,
on flood?
you can choose your deductibles.
Okay.
Yeah, FEMA sets the FEMA rates and the FEMA deductibles, and we have the private companies that set the rates and through the state
Okay.
and the deductibles. They give you choices now, a lot of choices.
Oh, that's good. So it used to be that we just had FEMA, right? We
Right.
didn't have any choices. And now is that because they've gotten a little bit, the insurance company's a little bit more conservative, so they're liking us a little bit better now in
Yeah.
Florida and coming back?
Yeah, but there's more players in the game, and we have so many more private flood companies.
Good.
And most of them are through Lloyd's of London, which is surplus, but Lloyd's is a huge company.
Right. So they can get some good rates. Okay.
Yes.
So if you want to know more about flood insurance, we'll be right back.
Dude, I got this cool.
Consumer advocate, your host, and the consumer quarterback, Brandon Rhymes.
Hi, welcome back. Thanks for coming back. So as you can see, we have the flood maps up now, and these maps are confusing as heck to me, but you
Yes, they
probably
are.
understand them
Yes.
tremendously. And I do understand that they've changed some of the flood maps. They're always doing that, right? Changing some of the
Yes,
flood maps
yes.
and everything. So tell us where we're at now. And what it's like. That looks like mostly Pinellas,
That's
right?
mostly Pinellas.
Okay. So we'll start here.
We'll start here. Some of the maps on the coast, like out in Gulf Harbors.
Yeah, let's
Some-
take Gulf Harbors.
Gulf Harbors, because they're right out there in the water. Some of them that were kind of like back away from the beach area,
Uh-huh.
and some of those, inlets, the canals.
Right.
In 2012, they were re-rated as a V zone, which is a high velocity waves, which that didn't really,
Which
yes,
is the
maybe
most
so.
expensive. Not on the
The most
canals.
expensive on the
Yeah.
canals, which was a little bizarre, but we're like, okay, that's FEMA. And some of them just got re-rated to a zone, which is a little bit less. It's going to
Oh,
be
good.
a lot less.
A
than
lot
high
less
velocity.
cost-wise.
Yes.
For the owners.
For the
Good.
homeowner. So, you need to have your agent check and see if your zone has changed,
What causes them to change the zones?
Every few years, they go in and determine,
How many claims and
how
things
many
like
claims, and, did the water rise here? Did we have flood claims here?
that? Right.
Inland at Rowan Road in 54 and Seven Springs,
Yes.
right down from the
yes.
office.
Right down from me.
Tropical Storm Debbie,
It
4 or
flooded.
5 years ago.
Yes.
It flooded for days.
Yes.
The Anclote River backed up, and now they have all that building up there, so we're anxious to see what's going on up there. And
So what is that? Any idea what that's rated right now? Is that that's an AE, isn't it?
some are AE.
Okay. So AE is a little bit less, and when I say a little bit less, I mean cost-wise
Right.
for the policy. So it's
Correct.
AE is a little bit less than A, right?
Well, they're all A zones, and it really boils down to your elevation certificate, where
Oh,
your
okay.
house sits in proximity to the base flood elevation.
Okay.
If it's at 15 feet and your house sits at 17 or 18 feet, you can apply for an exemption to be taken out of the flood zone,
Okay.
so which is good.
Is that what's called the LOMA letter?
LOMA or LOMAR, letter of
LOMAR.
map revision or letter of map amendment.
Okay.
When a builder goes in and he raises the whole subdivision up
Yep.
or street out of the flood zone, that's a letter of map amendment.
Okay.
So he's filing that on behalf of the whole subdivision. Now, if you live in an area, and I had a client, his flood was $1,200. It was an A zone, A numbered zone. He did an elevation certificate. It was 4 feet above the base flood elevation.
So his
So
insurance
he got a
went
letter.
down.
Well, he didn't have to have it, but he kept it because now it's an X zone, which is the preferred, which is the least expensive.
So he still has flood
Yes.
insurance, God forbid something happens,
Yeah,
but
it's
he's paying a
optional.
very low,
Right.
but the coverage is still the same?
Yes, he can still keep
Good.
the same coverage.
Same coverage. See,
Yeah.
that's good. So people, it would definitely, if it just pays if you're in a flood zone, get
Yes.
an elevation certificate.
Right.
So that you know. Okay.
If you use FEMA. Now, if you're in a V zone, you still need that elevation certificate for FEMA and the private flood companies. But we have so many private flood companies now, there's so many more options, which is huge,
And how do they factor into all of this? So you don't have to use FEMA anymore.
right?
You can go to these
Private flood companies.
private flood companies.
Out in Hudson,
Mm-hmm.
the little out there sea isles, first isle.
Right.
I just saved one of my clients, her mother lives out there, saved her $500 on her flood insurance.
Wow.
And living on a fixed income, that was huge for her.
Right.
That was huge.
Because of
Private flood insurance.
as opposed to she was with FEMA.
FEMA.
Before.
Yeah.
Nice.
And if you're not rated and you've had FEMA and you're not rated with an elevation certificate, your policy goes up X amount per year until it's actuarially rated or you provide an elevation certificate. So we look at all your options, looking at the elevation certificate with FEMA, without, and then with private flood companies.
Okay.
And with the pre-firm homes, meaning they were built before the flood maps were in existence, they're a little bit cheaper. They're a little bit
Okay.
easier on the rates because, they were here before the flood maps.
Ah. So if somebody, and again, this doesn't, with the mortgage people, do the mortgages, obviously with a cash buyer, they can go with private, or do the mortgage companies accept these private
Most of them.
flood places as well?
Most of them. If it's a VA loan, they're a little bit iffy.
Okay.
We had one right on the Gulf. His flood insurance was going to be $17,000.
Ouch! No way.
Yikes. So we had the private flood at $4,000, and that's still a lot. And he said, if the flood insurance is going to be $17,000, I need to walk away from the deal. So,
Yeah.
you know, finally we got to somebody, and they're like, okay, we'll take it.
Oh, okay.
So that was huge. That
Okay.
was huge. So
So little at a time, I guess the mortgage companies. I know that we accept the
Yes.
private, but I know it took a while to get there.
Yes.
At first, they were like, no. So that's good. So the mortgage companies are starting to accept them. That's good to
Right.
know. Okay, so what else do people need to know about flood besides the rising waters and their deductibles and things like that?
yeah, your deductibles, you can choose what you want. Of course, the higher your deductible, the cheaper your insurance is going to be. When it comes to your building, the mortgage companies like it to be, well, FEMA is the maximum is $250,000, but they'd like to see it to match your homeowner's policy.
Oh, okay.
But the contents, you can choose what you want. You can choose to insure your contents or not have your contents insured.
Okay. Now, the last thing, and because I know we're running out of time here, but I do want to talk about just recently, this has started coming up. I mentioned it to you before, where it's a homeowners combined flood.
Right.
That's new.
That is.
What are they doing?
Some of them do that. Some of them offer it. There's very few select companies.
And you still have just as much coverage
Right.
with both of them. They're just combining everything together.
Right.
So you don't have to, because it's much less, it's way cheaper to
And
do it that way, it seems.
You have to really read the fine print. Some
Okay.
are less. I
Ah,
saw one
less
come up with
coverage.
an automatic flood coverage of $10,000. Well, that's not going to cover the amount of the loan.
Okay.
And condos on the beach, I've got a wonderful company that will include flood in the condo
Nice.
insurance.
Well, we are out of time, unfortunately, and this has been, it always is when I have you on. There's more questions than I have time to ask.
We'll do
so, yes, we'll do lunch, and we will have Denise back again, I am sure. So let's just talk real quick about our favorite charity of choice, our networking group, WPBA, West Pasco Business Association, and some of the upcoming stuff we have. Well, actually, before I get to that, let me talk about my Lunch and Learn for all of you realtor partners out there. Our Lunch and Learn is going to be June 11th, our next one, June 11th. So make sure you come out for that. We are at Carrabba's on 19 in Port Richey. It is free to you guys. Come have lunch with us. Our speaker this month is going to be Dawn Kanan. She is an underwriter. So think about your underwriting questions that you have. All of the things. She does a lot of government underwriting, VA, FHA, that kind of stuff. So please come on out for that. Just shoot me an email. WPBA has some cool upcoming stuff. I don't even have time to go into it, but go to our website, wpba.biz, and you can get caught up on everything that's going on. A lot of community events going on. Denise, thank you so much for being with me and
Thank you for
co-hosting.
having
You've been
me.
awesome. You're a good friend. Give her a call if you have any questions or need anything. She is absolutely a wealth of information. We appreciate you guys all watching. Please, don't know how you found us, but share us, like us on Facebook. We're on all the social media, things like that. We appreciate you guys. We are today and every day.
Moving forward.
We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.